All right, welcome everyone. My name is Joshua Eric, coming to you live from Wichita. And we have a special guest today to learn about one of the favorite Kansans of, we were just talking of all Kansans, right? We're all a little proud of Ike. And so we're excited today. I'm excited to welcome Julie, and she's coming to us live from Abilene. So everyone wave to Julie. Hey, Julie, you want to tell us a
Hi,
little bit about where you are, the campus you're at, and then we'll dive into the presentation.
absolutely. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I am so excited to be with you today. Happy Kansas Day, by the way. I am here right on the campus of the Dwight Eisenhower Library, Museum, Boyhood Home, and Place of Meditation. I'm coming to you from the museum today, from the classroom where we have different classes and presentations for students and classrooms who come here for field trips. So look at eisenhowerfoundation.net for information if you would like to come visit our campus. And so, yes, today I am very excited to share with you about Dwight Eisenhower as a boy growing up in Abilene, Kansas. Yes, his nickname was Ike and was the 34th president of the United States. Um, and growing up, though, I think he was probably very much like you. And if you look on this slide, you see him as a toddler in that picture down there, and as a young boy, and then as a teenager. And so today I want to share with you kind of how he grew up, where he got some of his Midwestern ideas. The quote on the slide kind of gives you a clue to the title of our presentation. It comes from a poem called The Barefoot Boy by John Greenleaf Whittier. And Dwight referenced this poem in his homecoming when after World War II, his first stop was Abilene, Kansas. And so it says, because no man is really a man who has lost out of himself all of the boy. I want to speak first of the dreams of a barefoot boy, because today that dream of mine of 45 years or more ago has been realized beyond the wildest stretches of my own imagination. I come here first to thank you, to say the proudest thing I can claim is that I am from Abilene. And so I hope that you kind of take from this presentation that no matter who you are, no matter where you live, you can chase your dreams like Dwight Eisenhower did and accomplish them. All right, so a little bit about Abilene. Abilene is located right there, that red star. The top picture is a picture of downtown Abilene when Dwight was 15 years old. Take a notice of that. Look at the streets. You see any pavement there? You see many cars. That's a dirt road. Not a lot of cars, still a lot of horses and buggies. In fact, Dwight talked about when he was a boy, when it rained a lot, he had a lot of fun on those streets. The sidewalks were made out of wood, kind of planks nailed together, and they would actually, you could get on them and slide down the street in the mud. That bottom picture is Ike's boyhood home, and that's the same house that's right here on the campus that you can come take a tour of if you come visit us. Today, though, we're going to take a virtual tour of that house in just a little bit. What I'm really excited to share with you today are some artifacts that would have been used by Dwight and his family when he was a boy. And we'll take a look at some of those. You know, in the museum here, we talk a lot about primary sources and secondary sources. And so what are primary sources? So this is any direct evidence produced during a specific period under study. So it could be artifacts, photographs, diaries, maps, movies, songs, eyewitness accounts. Today, I'm going to show you some artifacts, and there's tons of pictures throughout this presentation that are also primary sources. But secondary sources are also very important. They're an interpretation of the past. So books that were written about a topic are secondary sources. History books are secondary sources. I am a secondary source because I'm telling you what I know, but I wasn't actually there during when Dwight Eisenhower was living. All right, so some of you may have this artifact, this analysis sheet that we use when we are analyzing artifacts. If you don't, that is perfectly okay. We'll kind of talk about this together. But today, as we look at these artifacts, we are going to be detectives, and this sheet kind of helps us look at clues when we're looking at these artifacts to find out what they are and how they are used. All right, so we're going to talk about Dwight Eisenhower's home first. And as I'm going to show you a short video that shows his home. And as I am showing this video, I have some questions that I'd like for you to think about. All right, so while you're watching this video, what are some similarities between you and Dwight Eisenhower when he was growing up? What are some differences? I bet you're going to see a lot of differences, but think about how you might be the same as well. What is something interesting or unusual that you noticed about Dwight Eisenhower's home? And maybe what surprised you? All right, let's start our video and be thinking of those questions.
The boyhood home of Dwight D. Eisenhower provides a glimpse into the experiences and values of the family that produced the commanding general of Allied forces in World War II and the 34th President of the United States. The true foundation of the home on Southeast 4th Street in Abilene, Kansas, was built on hard work, faith, and character. David and Ida Eisenhower moved to Abilene, Kansas with their 3 sons, Arthur, Edgar, and Dwight, in 1892, when Ike was just a toddler. Their first residence was a 3-room house that barely met their needs. By 1898, the family purchased this 6-room house on Southeast 4th Street from David's brother. A larger house was needed for their growing family, which would be complete with their 7th son, Milton, born in 1899. Ida transformed this house into a home for her family, filling it with heirlooms such as a walnut secretary, a bookcase, and her prized piano, which became centerpieces of their home. The family Bible, hand-embroidered pillows, and a blanket woven by Ike's great-grandfather united the generations that reached back before the nation's independence. The front parlor, reserved for entertaining company, held bookcases filled with literature, math, and history texts. Dwight's special fascination was history. Even more than reading about historic battles, Dwight admired the character, courage, and self-sacrifice of military figures such as George Washington. Evenings were spent as a family in the back parlor. Often, Ida would play the piano or give lessons to the boys. They all took turns reading and reciting from the Bible, learning lessons in faith and humility. Dwight never forgot these lessons, and many of his later speeches asked for God's blessing on the nation. The back parlor and the kitchen, now a dining room, were the 2 busiest rooms of the home. Ida and the boys prepared meals on a stove that sat where the sideboard is today. The family gathered at a large trestle table to eat, replaced with this smaller dining table years later. With only 3 bedrooms and 8 family members, space was already at a premium when Dwight's grandfather joined the household in 1900. They built an addition to the home with 2 bedrooms and a closet. The front bedroom was for David and Ida, while grandfather Jacob took the back bedroom. The 6 boys now spread out in the 3 upstairs rooms. Arthur, the oldest, got a room of his own, even if all that fit was a small single bed. Ida assigned the back bedroom to Edgar and Dwight, close in age and of similar personalities. The largest bedroom was shared by the younger brothers, Roy, Earl, and Milton.
All right. Well, I would love to hear some of your thoughts about some of those questions. And so please put those in the chat. We can kind of visit about those, or if you have any questions at all about the house where Dwight Eisenhower and his brothers grew up. So, what were some of the similarities between you and Dwight Eisenhower? Or maybe what were some of the differences? Anything interesting or unusual that maybe you noticed about Dwight Eisenhower's home? Or what was something that surprised you? You know, even though they had a nice home in that time, it was still pretty crowded for a family of 9 when
Yes.
his grandfather moved in.
Yeah, so a few things, and I apologize, may need to refresh my screen here, but one of the things that asking if they had to share a bed, because obviously several names were mentioned and only one
Right.
bed. So what did that look like? And so those are a couple of things that were asked, and a few more are coming in now. So let's start with that.
Right.
What did sharing look like?
Yes, yes, they absolutely had to share a bed. Um, the oldest brother was the only one who had a room to himself because he, being the oldest, I guess they felt that he had earned that privilege. So certainly, then as they grew up and moved out of the house, then they probably had more room to themselves and didn't have to share as much.
All right, another question, or I guess just an aha, is just kind of a couple of people are saying, "Hey, we were surprised that had just how small the room seemed." And so
Mhm.
that was a question that came in. Another question
Right.
that came in is, when was this house built? So when was it built? And they mentioned the add-on was that expensive.
Boy, I don't know exactly what the cost was for the add-on. I know they did a lot of the work themselves. They taught
Okay.
themselves how to do all the electrical work, how to do the plumbing. So they taught themselves how to do that. This house was built in the mid 1800s. I'm not sure of the exact date. But they moved into this house, let's see, I believe it was 1896 when they moved into this house. It had been owned by another member of the family. Um, so it's an old house. It's been around a long
Okay, been
time.
been around a long time. Okay, now Mrs. Blank's class from Phillipsburg, they want to know if this family would be considered rich because they were able to have the additions. So were they kind of like upper class, middle class, or lower class? That was a good question that came in from Phillipsburg.
That is a good question. Interestingly, though, they were considered poor. It is a beautiful house, but they lived on the south side of town, which was considered the wrong side of the tracks. Literally, they were right in the middle of two railroad lines. Um, and so the more wealthy members of the town lived on the north end of town. So um, they were not considered wealthy by any means, but they enjoyed living a simple life, and I don't think they felt like they were disadvantaged in any way.
Gotcha. Another kind of a few questions that came in are just about the house today. So it's pretty amazing that you're close to that house. People want to know if you can tour that house. Does anyone live in that house? And
Right.
how many visitors does it maybe get?
Oh, goodness, we get a lot of visitors. Yes, you absolutely can come and tour the house. It's one of the most popular places to visit. Um, so, classrooms who come on campus to take a tour of the whole campus are able to visit the house Because of fire codes, we can't take anyone upstairs to where the upstairs bedrooms are, but you definitely can see everything in the bottom floor of the house. And it's one of the most favorite places for people to go and visit.
Now, a good clarifying question because you mentioned two homes, right? Or two homes were mentioned in the video.
Mhm.
Was that home also in Abilene, or was that somewhere else? Question came in about
Good
that.
question. Yes, the first home that they lived in was just about a block north of the home that they bought and moved in later.
Okay, awesome, awesome. And yeah, we have several people. Looks like Earhart is joining. Like I said, Phillipsburg. So we have lots of people from around the state. We appreciate you. Keep those questions coming. And Julie, just an update. You may need to pause sharing if you want to pull up those artifacts, if you want those full screen. Um,
Okay.
so just if you feel comfortable with that, if not, then we can keep going. But I think we're ready for the new thing. Keep those questions coming. And
Yes.
Sabetha Middle School is also here.
Great.
Good question coming in as you're kind of transitioning to the next item is how much
Yes.
land was it on?
Oh goodness. The whole house, is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I think they were maybe
Mm-hmm.
wondering was there acreage or is it
It
just kind of a
yeah.
small mid-size kind of lot?
It was a pretty good sized lot. It wasn't a farm. They lived, in town, but it had a good sized barn. They had a very large garden. There was another building where, they kept their chickens and things. They had several fruit trees. So it was a large lot. They were able to have a lot there. So that was a very good question. All right. Well, now let's analyze an artifact. And so let me just try stop sharing here. Can
There
you
you
see
go.
me? All
Looks
right.
great. Yep, looks
Awesome.
great.
So I wanted to share with you an artifact that probably was used most by Ida, but the boys might have used it as well. So this is the artifact that I'm looking at. And so kind of think about, what might this be? It's hard. It's made out of wood. It's very smooth and not very heavy. I will give you a hint. It's used with this sock. And as you notice, this sock has a hole in it. So to use it, you would have to put this inside the sock, right where the hole is. Now it's ready to use. Any
Hmm.
guesses about what this is?
Oh, well, we are no guesses yet as we're coming in, but
Okay.
we want to say, but I was thinking shoes when you pulled that up. I saw just it kind of mimicked that at so that was the idea. Someone did ask if it was a shoehorn, so that was our guess that came in.
It isn't used in a shoe. And I don't think you could wear the sock with this in here, could you? So it does have something to do with this hole. You would only use it with socks that had holes in them. And back when Dwight Eisenhower was a boy, they didn't have stores like Walmart and Target. If you got a hole in your sock, you couldn't go buy new socks. So they had to do everything they could to repair them and make them last as long as possible. So, how would this help repair a sock? Hmm. If I
Yeah,
did,
so several of them are saying, "Hey, to sew up the holes." So I'm
right.
thinking, does it help push the needle through? I'm trying to, take back
Mm-hmm.
these days of sewing, right? Um,
Right. Well, you are absolutely right. This is a darning egg. If I put my hand in here like this, I could also repair the hole, but I might do what with the needle?
yeah,
I might hurt my hand, right?
sure.
But
Yeah.
if I had this in here, my needle would be hitting against this instead of my hand. And
Okay.
so I could darn my socks without hurting my hand with the needle. All right, let's go on. And let's see here.
Yep, it's coming up. All right, so we're ready. Again, yeah, lots of people coming in with these ideas of keeping that, holding that shape of the sock there. So,
Okay, okay. Well, let's see. For some reason, my presentation has vanished.
all right. And while you're doing that, again, we even have a few people sharing out, Julie, as you pull that up, just that they are even Mrs. Farr's room are just down the road from Abilene. They're saying in Junction City, so they must are aware of that. And if you aren't for sure, that would be a good thing that you might do or look up is Abilene and where it is in Kansas. And there we see it.
There we go.
And
Got
we see
that?
it there, Julie. So where in Kansas
Okay.
exactly is Abilene?
Okay, so Abilene is right along I-70. And if you come west on I-70 from Topeka, it's almost right in the middle of the state of Kansas.
Yeah, so
So
right there
it's
on I-70
right,
between Salina and
right.
Topeka.
Yes,
All right,
yes.
what are we looking at now, Julie?
All right, well, we're going to talk about the jobs and responsibilities that Ike and his brothers had. So Ike was a very responsible person, um, and that was something that he displayed as an adult when he was president and when he was five-star general in the Army. There was a lot of work to do in the Eisenhower home, as you can imagine, with six boys. And so this is a picture of Ike's brothers, Earl and Milton, feeding the family's chickens. And we're going to watch a short video clip next that talks about some of the jobs and responsibilities that they had. So here's some questions to think about. What were some of the chores and jobs that Dwight and his brothers were expected to do? How do those chores and jobs compare to those that you might do at home? Why do you think hard work was necessary for the Eisenhower family? And again, what did you find interesting or surprising? So this is a short video we'll take a look at here.
The Eisenhower's days were filled with hard work. David worked 80 hours a week at the Bell Springs Creamery, while Ida managed domestic responsibilities and daily chores around the home. She raised the boys to be productive members of the family. In addition to the traditionally male chores of feeding and caring for chickens, cows, and other livestock, the boys learned how to cook, clean, sew, iron, and do laundry, all without indoor plumbing. They learned from their father how to make improvements and additions to the home. Using a correspondence course manual, they wired the home for electricity to replace the oil-burning lamps. 2 years after Grandpa Jacob's death in 1906, the boys helped convert his bedroom to the family's only indoor bathroom. This became possible when the city extended water and sewer lines to this part of town. While David and Ida's hard work supplied what was needed, the boys learned that they would have to work for what they wanted. Dwight learned how to make his mother's tamale recipe and then marketed them around town. Earnings were spent on sports equipment, such as baseball bats and gloves.
All right. So they did work very hard. And as you might have caught there at the very end, they worked to raise money to buy things that they wanted, like baseball gloves and baseballs. If they wanted to play football, they had to buy their own football equipment. But generally, everyone in the family worked very hard. And did you catch that part about them knowing how to cook and sew and clean? Normally in those days, those kinds of things were considered for girls or women, But Ida wanted to make sure that her boys all knew how to do that as well. And so they were very accomplished at those things. So, share some things that you noticed in this or that you thought were interesting. I'm sure that some of you probably have chores and things that you do at home. Do you have any of the similar chores that they do? Do any of you have pets to feed or animals to feed at your house? Or maybe
Now,
you,
Julie,
yes,
as some things start coming in here, one thing that I thought was a good observation by someone, I can't remember who it was, is they did pick up from the first video, they were asking about the bathroom. And
yes,
so that was kind of answered in this one because they wanted to know, hey, where do they go to the bathroom? So
right,
obviously that would have been in an outhouse somewhere where there's
correct.
not plumbing. And so as so a couple of things that came in is why did they have to learn how to sew? So that was a question that came in. So what was the thought process behind them learning how to sew?
Mhm. Well, I think Ida um, definitely wanted to make sure that her sons knew how to take care of themselves. And so that included knowing how to cook and knowing how to sew. Um, and she often would have them do those things. On Sundays, she considered that her day off. And so the boys were in charge of cooking all the meals on Sundays. And they became very accomplished in the kitchen that I think President Eisenhower also has a cookbook that you can get in our visitor center that has a lot of his favorite recipes. He was also very accomplished at sewing. When he was married to Mamie, he helped her kind of adjust some of her clothes when she was expecting a baby. Um, and I think Mamie even mentioned that he could cook and sew better than she could. So they definitely learned some good life skills.
All right, awesome. And we have about 5 minutes left. And so one of the things that and we do have some friends saying that they have some similar chores, such as
Hmm.
laundry, even feeding chickens is on here, washing
Right,
dishes, feeding
right.
pets is on here a lot. And now another question that came up is what sports? Now, I won't ruin it because I learned it this morning, but what sports did they like? And the other real good question, and we may have to end on this one, I thought that was great, is they wanted to understand what was the age difference of all of the kids. So when we hear the older to the younger, were they 2 years apart, 3 years apart, that sort of thing. So that was a great
Hmm.
question that came in.
Right, right. Well, Ike's favorite sports were baseball and football. Um, in fact, when he was in school, he just wasn't thinking about becoming president. He wasn't thinking about joining the army and being a general. He wanted to be a professional baseball player. So that was very interesting. When he went into
I'm sure there's a
college,
few boys and females that could relate wanting to be professional athletes to Ike
absolutely.
there.
Yes, that didn't happen, which I'm kind of glad. I'm glad that he
Right.
became a president instead. As far as the age differences between the brothers, they were pretty close in age. I don't have their birth dates here. I can't give you exact um, spans, but usually a year or two apart. So they were pretty close in age. Um, Dwight did have a brother, Paul, who was born after him who passed away when he was 10 months old. At that age, they didn't have the medicines that we do now, and he got diphtheria. Now we get a shot for that, so that doesn't make us sick. So there were actually seven boys altogether. Have any other
Another question
questions?
that, yeah,
Yes.
another question that came in, and again, we apologize, we're not able to get to all of them, but you mentioned
Yes.
his wife. People want to know when or what age did he get married?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, after he graduated from West Point, he was stationed in Texas. And so he entered West Point when he was 20, and then he went down to Texas when he was 24. He met Mamie right away. She was from Colorado, however, but she was there with her parents visiting some people. And right away, there was kind of a spark there. They met each other, and he was 25. She was a little bit younger than that, but it was a great marriage.
Well, Julie, we just want to take a moment. I know you didn't get to all your artifacts and all of your
Yes.
things. So, you guys, I put the link in the chat at the very, very beginning, but you can, of course, check out the website. Can you give us that website one more time that they could go and check out to learn more about the.
Let me bring up that slide. There we go.
All right,
It's
awesome.
And there's also a QR code there that will take you to our educator's guide. We would love to see you on the campus. We also have other online programs that we
Awesome.
can share if you aren't able to make it to campus. So we'd love to hear from you.
All right, Julie, thank you so much. Everyone, give Julie a round of applause and give wave goodbye. Thank you so much,
Bye.
Julie,
Thank
and we'll make
you.
sure to circle back around with you to answer any questions you have. Take care.
Absolutely. Bye bye.
Great job. Thank you.
Mhm.